The state address from the governor of Kansas. Republican Bill Graves spoke to the state legislature at the Capitol in Topeka on January 10th. His speech ran about a half hour.
Thank you. Good. Mr. Speaker, Mr. President, Madam Chief Justice, members of the legislature, and fellow Kansans. While we entered the year 2000 amid greater than usual celebration, I suspect for most Kansans it was a new year similar to others, and the opportunities and challenges in their lives for 2000 are similar to those of 1999. A single event does not define people, their beliefs, or aspirations. The same holds true for public service. Our hopes and aspirations for a better Kansas are not defined by a single 90-day legislative session. In a what have you done for me lately environment, we often fail to provide a sense of perspective. We must blend yesterday, today, and tomorrow to have a fair and accurate assessment of our commitment to this state and its people. Let's reflect for a few minutes on the collective achievements of the legislature and this administration, not merely to provide a snapshot of today, but to paint a picture of the significant and positive impact our collective efforts have had and will continue to have on Kansas. The successes are many. Let me highlight a few. Together, we've made critical investments in badly neglected infrastructure. We've successfully rebuilt our state parks, repaired and renovated classrooms at our state universities, increased prison capacity, and enhanced our transportation system to allow our economy to continue to grow and our citizens to travel safely. We've invested in our state capitol to preserve our heritage and the Capitol complex to provide greater access to state government for Kansans. It would have been easy to delay these long-term needs to satisfy short-term demands until a time of crisis. Our vision will be appreciated by a generation of Kansans. Together, we've enhanced K-12 education financing. Highlights of our efforts include nearly doubling the funding to educate at-risk children, increasing state support for each pupil and for special education, and providing $10 million in special grants for technology. Despite declining local effort from property taxes, policies enacted by the state have allowed education spending to increase at an average rate of 4.4% over the last 5 years. Together, we've improved our system of higher education. We've raised admission standards, requiring students entering our universities to demonstrate a strong commitment to learn. We boldly changed the governance of higher education, a change that I believe will achieve even more than its strongest proponents envisioned. We also increased state spending for our public universities the past 4 years by $75 million, double the rate of inflation. To listen to some, one might think we've failed to respond to the needs of our most vulnerable citizens. That is simply not true. Our record shows a clear and significant commitment to Kansans most in need of care. The last 5 years have seen an unprecedented transformation from state institutions to community and in-home care. While it has enhanced our citizens' quality of life, at the same time, it has dramatically increased our financial obligation. Between fiscal year 1997 and fiscal year 2000, our spending for physically disabled Kansans has grown more than 300%, an increase of $38 million. Our frail elderly program expenditures have been enhanced 240%, an increase of $33 million. We've closed 2 state hospitals and shifted all the money saved to community funding. In addition, since the closing, we added $83 million to the mental health and developmental disability systems, an increase of 24%. We've taken steps to make our state a safer place to live and raise a family. We increased penalties for violent crimes, sex offenses, and violation of drug laws. Additionally, we increased the minimum amount of a criminal's sentence they must serve. These changes have had an impact. Our prison population has grown by 1,000 over the past 3 years. Crime is down because criminals are behind bars. Together, we've taken action to improve the environment and make our water safer by providing loans for critical water system upgrades and financial incentives for producers to voluntarily restore stream banks as part of the Governor's Water Quality Initiative. We've directed Kansas State University to research confined animal feeding operations to better ensure groundwater protection. From human services to highways, from education to the environment, we've made progress for the people of Kansas. Government cannot make perfect the imperfections of society, but we can improve and enhance the quality of life for Kansans, and we have. What is even more remarkable is while these new directions in public policy and the investments in the future of Kansas were occurring, we returned record-setting dollars to the people of Kansas through historic tax reductions. Today, some say we did too much. I cannot agree. Ask the family of 4 who in 1998 made $18,000 and owed $175 in income taxes to the state of Kansas if taxes were cut too much. Because in 1999, they had no tax liability and in fact were owed $240. Ask the car taxpayer in Jackson County if we did too much. The tax on a $15,000 car in that county in 1995 was $465. The tax for this year on a car with the same value will be $207. This is a reduction of more than 55%, a pattern replicated in every county in Kansas. Ask the single working parent who supports a family if the $39 million we returned to single Kansans by eliminating the unfair income tax was the wrong thing to do. While these examples tell personal stories, overall numbers tell the entire story. We cut the uniform mill levy by more than 1/3, saving Kansans $320 million each year. Before we enhanced the food sales tax rebate program, only $2 million went to our low-income citizens. In 1999, they received rebates of over $22 million. 2 years ago, in my State of the State address, I asked you to enact an earned income tax credit so the working poor could keep more of their hard-earned dollars. Thanks to our action, they now keep an additional $20 million. Because of our tax cuts, low-income Kansans, businessmen and women, farmers and ranchers, homeowners, all have more of their money to invest in their futures. We should be proud of that. When we see our process and its efforts in a broader perspective, I believe collectively we can take satisfaction in the new directions taken in supporting those programs most critical to our future while providing vital tax relief to our citizens. Tonight we focus on the next 90 days, weighing our responsibilities as well as our opportunities. As you are all aware, this budget is the most challenging of the past 5 years. That does not mean, however, we cannot provide effective, efficient, and vital services and programs. Most Kansans have faced years in which unexpected declines in income or increased expenses made them budget more carefully. That is what we face, and like the people of this state, we can and will adjust and ensure that what needs to be done will be done. This budget I present to you was built on 5 principles. The first principle is we cannot spend money we do not have. Kansas families and businesses recognize this fact, and their government must recognize it as well. For example, I appreciate the legislative discussion on maintaining the $50 per pupil for education in the current year. Make no mistake, I share your passion for education, and I worked hard to maintain this funding. However, because of the constraint of a 7.5% ending balance requirement and revenues currently below the consensus estimates, the needed $16 million was simply not available. I am eager to review your source of funding should you increase the current year budget to meet what I consider to be a mutual goal. The second principle, tax increases are not acceptable substitutes for fiscal management. Third, there should be an ending balance of 7.5% as required by law. There are those who would take the easy way out by rating the ending balances or reverse the progress we've made over the last 5 years by increasing taxes. I would strongly caution them not to do so. Let's use sound fiscal management, not emergency dollars or increased taxes, to meet our budget responsibilities. We are not in difficult economic times. Our unemployment rate is at a 20-year record low, and job creation and income are at all-time highs. With the exception of our troubled agricultural economy, Kansas is very strong. We are merely in a period when we need to control our spending. If you use ending balances to increase spending and the state should enter into an economic downturn, you will leave critical programs unprotected. This is unacceptable fiscal policy. The fourth principle of my budget is to set priorities, not make simplistic across-the-board budget decisions. We ask agencies to prioritize within their budgets. Then, as the budget was prepared, we prioritized agencies and programs. The result is some areas absorb significant cuts, while others are held harmless, and some will grow. The budget reflects my strong commitment to K-12 education, higher education, and vital social services. In the context of a difficult budget year, these priorities are well supported. The fifth principle of my budget reaffirms the commitment we make each year to the state's most precious resource, our children. The emphasis on children in this year's budget is underscored by the $63 million state general fund growth and $117 million growth from all funding sources. In addition, last year's decision to dedicate 95% of expected proceeds from the tobacco settlement to new or enhanced programs improving the lives of children will serve us well for years to come. This year, over $9 million new dollars will be invested in children's programs, in community partnerships, in early education for at-risk children, and in increased support for parent education and statewide learning opportunities. The $70 million that will flow directly to the State General Fund from tobacco proceeds represents most of the new money that allowed significant enhancements in a wide array of programs benefiting children. These 5 principles guided me in making my budget decisions. Even with our challenges, I believe the budget I present tonight will serve Kansans well. Because there are agencies willing to shoulder more than their share of the burden, we can increase our support for vital programs. Your state agencies are filled with very capable and talented people who will play a major role in helping us through a tight budget year. And I ask you to join me in saluting them. I particularly want to note the support of Secretary Dean Carlson and the Department of Transportation. Significant state general funds were obtained because of KDOT's willingness to tighten their fiscal belt. We took as much as we could without retreating from our strong commitment to a new transportation plan. I am convinced KDOT has done its share, and I repeat, I will not support any action that will break our promise to Kansans of a new transportation plan. Let me highlight a few elements of my budget proposal. I am recommending a total budget from the State General Fund for Education of $2.3 billion for fiscal year 2001. This includes enhanced education funding of $50 for each K-12 student. Even though our fiscal year 2001 budget challenge is significant, we must continue doing our best to support public education. I am recommending $22 million in enhanced funding for community colleges and Regents institutions. This fulfills the fiscal year 2001 commitment made last session. I'm recommending step movement and an unclassified merit increase of 2.5% for state employees. This commitment to our state workers will cost $37 million. I'm urging an increase in fiscal year 2000 of $6 million and an increase of $6.6 million in fiscal year 2001 for child care assistance targeted to those on welfare returning to the workforce. I am asking for a $6.3 million increase in support of adoption services. We are doing a better job of providing permanent homes for children. We must do even more. I ask for more than $600 million to cover the medical cost of Kansans who need assistance, an increase of $33 million. $37.5 million provides health insurance for children so that no Kansas child need go without medical care. More than 15,000 Kansas children are already being served by this program, and combined with Medicaid, we are now serving 32,000 children who previously were uninsured. I have provided over $9 million in additional funds to serve elderly Kansans in their homes and over $4 million in additional funds for physically disabled Kansans. I am lending my support to allow schools and libraries access to the state information backbone for high-speed internet, voice, and video transmission. My recommendation is for $4.5 million from the Children's Initiative Fund for the first year one-time cost. I am committing $3 million to begin a partnership with with the Kansas Health Foundation and communities. The foundation has committed $30 million to match state and local funds over the next 10 years to build community capacity to improve the health of children. I am recommending funding for Johnson County and Sedgwick County adult residential correction centers and an additional $77 million for new prison construction for both adult and juvenile offenders. These will house our most violent criminals. And I am directing $1 million of the Kansas Department of Revenue budget for customer service upgrades, including a toll-free number for Kansas taxpayers. There are additional increases and reallocations in my budget proposal that enhance priority programs and provide adequate funding for agencies to carry out their essential responsibilities. In addition to budget items, I will be presenting several new initiatives. The people of Kansas deserve government that avoids even the appearance of improper conduct. Beginning in 1995 through my executive order, executive branch employees under my direct control no longer accept gifts or hospitality from groups who influence government. I am recommending this ban be extended to all executive branch employees. I also recommend lobbyists be required to report who they spend their money on. This is not a prohibition, it is simply disclosure, and it's the right thing to do. Perhaps nothing contributes more to accountable government than ensuring the business of governing occurs in full public view. Kansas has strong open record laws, but the mechanism to enforce these laws needs to be improved. The goals we need to achieve are clear: an accessible and affordable independent review for disputes, teeth in the enforcement process, and a method to assure only the true costs are charged for providing records to citizens. Let's make sure government is open to the people of Kansas. Seat belts save lives. We need to allow law enforcement to enforce the law. Today, this does not occur unless there is another violation. Providing for primary enforcement of seatbelt use will save lives and reduce injuries every day. We particularly need to protect our children when adults will not accept this responsibility. In Kansas, the law says you must wear a seatbelt. It's time to enforce that law. In 1995, I directed a review of regulations. It was a success as hundreds of outdated, irrelevant, and cumbersome rules and regulations were modified or eliminated. It's time to have a tough review again. By executive order, I will direct each agency to develop and implement a plan resulting in rules and regulations that are understandable, reasonable, and necessary. My budget and my initiatives clearly demonstrate that even in times of fiscal challenges, we can offer Kansans new programs, strengthen existing vital programs, and provide new public policy directions. As you make your policy and budget decisions, I ask you to be particularly aware of two responsibilities. First, build the budget on responsible projections, not hopes. Both this administration and the legislature are a significant part of the consensus estimating process. These estimates, not wishful thinking, must guide our budget decisions. The past few years, our revenues have exceeded our estimates. At this time, we have no basis on which to believe that will happen this year. The budget must be built on consensus estimates. I have done that. I urge you to do the same. Second, there are public policy issues that must be fully debated regarding our home and community-based services waivers. Using current trends, 2 years from now, I would need to recommend for these programs state general fund spending of $217 million, an increase of almost $170 million since fiscal year 1997. Spending from all funding sources would need to increase from $119 million to $544 million, an increase of over $400 million. We need to decide if we can afford these escalating costs, keeping in mind such increases will come at a cost to other crucial programs. I know these will be difficult debates as we discuss want to have versus need to have, comfortable versus critical, state responsibility versus community or family responsibility. These are not partisan issues. They are Kansas issues that must be addressed this session. In closing, let me affirm we will fund all basic services at an adequate level and invest more in our priorities. We will continue our successful partnership, one in which each of us can take pride. I am fully aware the process is a challenging one. We are diverse people with diverse views. To that is added a more challenging budget and the predictable political divisiveness that occurs each election year. We are well served to heed the words of William Allen White in his 1936 address at Northwestern University. He urged those graduates, as I urge you, to remember the great strengths of our nation, the elements of tolerance, patience, and duty, tolerance of other views, and a perspective of equality that will serve us all well in the coming days, patience to let the process work, to engage in full debate, to calmly think our way through difficult moments, and finally, a duty to never forget our responsibility to serve the people of Kansas. Duty does not know party, race, or gender. Duty does not depend on rank or station. Duty is about doing what is right with integrity and compassion. It's about good policy, not good politics. It demands that when the debate has ended and the decision has been made, we can say to our fellow Kansans, I have done my duty. Thank you and good night.